distinguished panelists, dear audience, there's no protection without social protection. Social protection systems help poor and vulnerable people cope with crises and shocks, find jobs, invest in health and education, and protect the aging population. For some of us, it is a given. For many, 1 in 5 of the most poor still lack the safety nets and coverages, the shelters given by family. In addition, climate change aggravates hardship, and only 2% of losses are covered in vulnerable countries, leaving a huge protection gap. Dear audience, as distinguished panelists, we have a very interesting and exciting topic ahead of us, and it's a first and unprecedented panel here of experts and distinguished members here. I have the honor to moderate this panel. My name is Astrid Zwick. I'm heading the Injury Resilience Global Partnerships Secretariat. And we will dive deeper into the question of, do social protection delivery systems via cash transfer enable reaching the poor and vulnerable? Can disaster risk finance support and bring fast liquidity and fast cash? And can the global shield ultimately make a substantial impact in the global fight against poverty and climate impacts? These are the questions we are raising today, and we'll learn about the challenges and opportunities, but also hear about best practice from our distinguished panelists. And I'm welcoming in our panel State Secretary Jochen Vlaasbaard from the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. Then the Honorable Minister of Senegal, Minister Alioune Ndoye, Minister for Environment, Sustainable Development and Ecological Transition. Also with us is Peter Duffy, Senior Deputy Assistant Administrator, Bureau for Africa, USAID. Hannah Brixey, Director for Gender of the World Bank, and Major General Mami Rasa Kanaivo, Executive Secretary of the Prevention and Management Emergency Unit at the Prime Minister's Office from Madagascar. Welcome, distinguished panelists.
Thank you.
So I would like to first have a first round of introductory statements by you. And I would like to ask you, State Secretary Vlaasbaard, to give a framing what the Global Shield holds for us and provide us with the umbrella here.
Thanks a lot. I'm really impressed that people join us here at the German Pavilion at a Saturday afternoon, where you can imagine also to do something else. But I think worth enough. And it gives me the opportunity not only again to say a few words about the Global Shield, but on the contrary, it puts the Global Shield in the general perspective of social protection. Because the bigger one is not the Global Shield, the bigger one is the universal global social protection. So just a few words about the Global Shield. I'm running around here since a couple of days to explain what it is and more what it is not. And happy to say a few words again. We are sitting here at this COP the first time seriously discussing about loss and damage. And I'm following this debate for a long, long time. And it had never reached this level of seriousness. And an indication of that is that we do have an agenda item. And that is the first thing I always say, what is a Global Shield not? The Global Shield is no tactics to avoid a formal discussion under the UNFCCC process. It's an offer for urgent action because there is no time to wait. We know the data. We know that we are confronted with increase in intensity and frequency of disasters. This is in a way unavoidable. We are sitting in this part of climate change already. What we are facing is the inappropriate action of the past, and that cannot be turned around. But what we can do is to be better prepared. And that is the loss and damage debate. And the Global Shield is in a way an approach to provide tailor-made pre-cooked finance in the cases of disasters. And that has many different potential instruments. Into resilience, approach of providing insurances for individuals is one part of that. And I repeat constantly, and I think you appreciate this, it's a successful approach. It was not something bad, and it is not something bad. It is needed that we address also individuals to get them under insurance protection. But we understood very well that for many of our partnering countries confronted with climate risks and losses and damages, that they request more. Looking at whole societies, looking at specific events, droughts, floodings, what to do then? Apart from the individual protection, then the Global Shield wants to provide specific instruments like adaptive social protection, like facilities, for example, to provide immediately seeds once a drought happened or a flooding happened and small farmers have lost their harvests. So to allow them immediately to get new seeds, not to get into a continued devil's cycle of poverty. And one part of that is also that in these cases we want to ensure that general social protection is set in place. But what is the lack of instruments behind that? And that is, and now I'm coming to the social protection, that in general, that 4 billion people out of 8 billion do not have access to general social protection. And that is what it makes even worse. That's a basic mistake we are facing, and that is in a disaster. In many countries, we have to ensure the basic social protection. If we were in a position where we do have set in place around the whole globe to put everybody under essential social protection, then we would be in another place. Then we can look specifically what is the gap beyond that is specific due to the specific situation in a country and a specific disaster. And this brings me finally from the UNFCCC to other entities. And I'm absolutely convinced, yes, we do support any discussions here under CCC, but the CCC will never solve the whole problem. We need to have other actors, the MDBs, the World Bank specifically, other IFIs, and the UN system to be part of the overall endeavor. And that is why Svenja Schulze, our minister, your governor, Anna, launched the initiative at the World Bank annual meeting to develop together between World Bank and ILO an approach to enhance and speed up that we get people under social protection. That's the whole story. I end here.
Thank you very much, State Secretary. And you just said it, putting the people under protection. Let us turn to the people. Let us turn to the countries that are most vulnerable. And I would like and love now to ask Your Excellency, the Honorable Minister of Senegal, raising the words on how is Senegal tackling climate change? How is it managing with the impacts, especially also with regard to the poor and vulnerable people? And we will have translation, consecutive translation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Et nous remercions déjà pour cette invitation faite à la délégation du Sénégal que nous représentons ici.
We thank you for inviting us in this venue, and the Senegalese delegation is very pleased to be with you today.
Je suis totalement en phase avec ce que vous dites, no protection without social protection. Ça, c'est une évidence. Et je vais parler peut-être du contexte spécifique du Sénégal. À savoir que nous avons une exposition particulière aux aléas climatiques, les érosions côtières, la sécheresse, les inondations, la désertification. Et on a une position et des caractéristiques géographiques qui sont des facteurs de vulnérabilité. C'est un pays qui est ouvert sur l'océan avec 718 km de côte. C'est 60% de notre population qui vit sur le littoral. C'est une littoralisation des activités économiques avec une concentration de toutes ces activités sur ce littoral-là. Et c'est un contexte climatique assez difficile. Une bonne partie du pays est située dans le domaine bioclimatique sahélien de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Je fais une pause.
Yeah. He basically agrees with all what has been said on social protection. It really resonates to him very well. But he would like to put some context on what Senegalese environment is, and that requests that kind of thinking. The Senegal is exposed to a multi-risk framework where we not only have flooding and drought, but we also have a lot of coastal erosion happening in the country. Senegal has 700 kilometers of littoral coastal areas, and 60% of the population live along the coastline. So, and it's the same place most of the economic activities is happening, and these are the key elements of the context of Senegal.
Quels sont, si on se pose la question, les événements climatiques à évolution lente, mais qui sont les plus récurrents au Sénégal? Vous avez l'élévation du niveau de la mer avec son corollaire, l'érosion côtière, vous venez d'en parler. Vous avez l'augmentation des températures, mais vous avez également la salinisation des terres due à l'avancée de la mer et surtout la désertification qui avance dans toute cette partie. Nous sommes une zone sahélienne.
So when we raise the questions, what is the most important factors of climate change affecting Senegal, it's easy to get long-term climate trend, which are slow motion processes that's happening in the country. But at the same time, we have sea level rise, which is not a trivial thing that is happening in our countries. Temperatures are rising very quickly with a lot of implications on people. We have salinization of soil, salt, encroachment on fertile lands that create big issues for community. And all those things, results into desertification, land degradation in the country.
Alors les effets, par exemple l'augmentation des températures sur l'agriculture. Des études ont prédit une production agricole locale inférieure à 50 kg par habitant, en raison d'une augmentation importante des températures d'ici la fin du siècle, suite à la diminution des précipitations dans le Sahel occidental. Cette situation pourrait avoir un impact sur la sécurité alimentaire à cause de la dépendance aux importations alimentaires, ce que nous vivons actuellement avec cette crise qui se passe en Ukraine et avec la Russie. Donc elle provoque aussi des migrations, c'est la conséquence, des migrations régionales, voire internationales, source de conflits et d'insécurité.
He would like to share the examples of the cascade effect of rising temperature in Senegal, which has direct effect on agriculture for obvious reasons. But when agriculture is affected, the food per capita to communities is getting lower, and that has implications on food security in general, but also a big price to pay for importing food. And we are living that conditions where importing food in Africa because of the crisis is becoming protracted. And lastly, because of food insecurity and poverty of people, there's a mass migrations of our youth to other countries. And that leads also to important conflicts and security issues in the dry land of the Sahel, such as Senegal.
J'ai parlé de la salinisation des terres. Aujourd'hui, les zones affectées sont estimées à entre 925 000 hectares à 1 700 000 hectares, dont les 625 000 sont gravement touchés déjà. Cette situation est plus marquée dans les régions de Fatick au Sénégal, Kaolack, Ziguinchor, ainsi que dans les zones de Niayes.
Another example is loss of fertile lands because of salinization. We estimate in Senegal 925 hectares to 1.5 million hectares affected by land degraded by salt. And out of this total, about 625,000 hectares are in very dire strait in terms of productivity. And that salinization affects critical region for food security such as Fatick, Kaolack and Ziguinchor in Senegal.
Et nous avons aussi des effets criards de la désertification, de la perte de biodiversité, la dégradation des terres et des forêts, avec des baisses de rendement et des productions agricoles, l'élevage, la pêche. Ce sont donc des pertes économiques importantes qui ont des implications sociales et sanitaires.
The economic loss related to desertification, biodiversity loss, etc., and forest loss are quite important in terms of low yield, livestock deprivation, and fisheries. A lot of stock on fisheries are being lost, and that have implication not only on the environment but also on people's, health.
Alors, la question c'est quelle réponse nous avons apportée à ces événements. Au niveau politique, les mesures politiques, c'est d'abord l'élaboration de documents de politique, le PSE, le plan Sénégal émergent, la contribution déterminée au niveau national du Sénégal, le plan national d'adaptation au changement climatique, la gestion durable des terres, l'intégration des changements climatiques dans les différentes politiques sectorielles, notamment dans l'agriculture, l'élevage, la santé, les ressources en eau, la gestion des terres, l'érosion côtière. Mais c'est dommage, régulièrement, le déclenchement de ce que nous appelons le plan Orsec pour faire face en cas d'événements climatiques extrêmes tels que les inondations et autres, et qui nécessitent beaucoup de ressources. Mais la mise en place également d'un régime national unique, le RNU, pour identifier les ménages vivant dans l'extrême pauvreté au Sénégal, pour leur permettre d'accéder de façon équitable et transparente à des programmes de filets sociaux.
So you asked the question, what are the responses that the Senegalese government is bringing to this overall situation? The country has put in place what they call PSE, the Emerging Plan for Senegal, which is an ambitious program for development. But they have another, the country has another program related to its NDC, which is quite ambitious, and the National Action Plan, National Adaptation Plan for Senegal in climate change. And all these plans are trying to resolve many issues related to sustainable management of land with implications of livestock, coastal zone management, food security, etc. There is a specific program for early interventions called ORSEC, Organisation Régionale des Secours. It's like an emergency plan when there is an extreme event. That plan, is just trying to resolve issues when they happen on the go, but they try to put the long-term perspective by putting a national network for social support, social protection, and that help poor people access some support in terms of resources to survive those crises.
Alors, au niveau mesures financières, c'est principalement un recours au budget national et locaux, donc des collectivités territoriales, pour soutenir les ménages en cas de besoin. C'est l'existence aussi d'institutions financières et fonds dédiés. Vous avez la Banque agricole au Sénégal, mais vous avez la Compagnie nationale également d'assurance agricole du Sénégal pour la couverture des risques agricoles. Vous avez des projets et programmes. Je mets une pause peut-être.
Yes. In terms of resource mobilization, the funding, sources to support these policies, they budgeted in the national budget, first of all, but also the local budget is taking into account those issues. But they have created some private sector support, such as the Agricultural Bank, which is LBA here. But they have also put in place a national insurance company for agriculture to support people which are in dire strait in terms of climate change.
Et nous avons des projets et programmes également financés par des mécanismes bilatéraux et multilatéraux. Vous avez des projets, un projet d'adaptation à l'érosion côtière dans les zones vulnérables du Sénégal, le projet de réduction de la vulnérabilité et du renforcement de la résilience dans des communautés des îles du Saloum, du Noir en particulier, le projet de renforcement de la résilience des écosystèmes et des communautés grâce à la restauration des bases productives des terres salinisées.
And in addition to all this funding mobilization, they have initiated a number of projects and programs with bilateral partners. Some example of those projects are those which are dealing with coastal zone erosion, which is already implemented with great results in the country. There's another project on vulnerability, addressing vulnerability in Salum Island, which is a lowland with a lot of implications of sea level rise in that place. They have a project on ecosystem resilience, land restoration, and land productivity, all happening in the country.
Et vous avez le projet bâtir la résilience climatique des petits agriculteurs vulnérables à travers une gestion intégrée des risques climatiques, l'initiative 4R. Vous avez le renforcement de gestion intégrée des risques climatiques en Afrique, qui est un autre programme également, qui couvre aujourd'hui 7 pays de la Grande Muraille Verte.
They have also initiated a smallholder program on resilience, which is an integrated approach, and another which is more sub-regional initiative called 4R, integrated risk for climate change responses across 7 countries in West Africa.
Alors,
In the Great Green Wall countries of West Africa, sorry.
nous avons, au niveau de la question partage d'expérience, en matière de protection sociale adaptative, du financement des risques de catastrophes. Le Sénégal, lui, est confronté au problème suivant. 60% de la population est concentrée, comme je l'ai dit en introduction, sur le littoral. Et des pertes importantes de côtes sont notées. Disparition des plages dans les sites touristiques et destruction des infrastructures de pêche, par exemple. Donc, des risques de perte d'emploi, énormément. La pêche, par exemple, c'est pas moins de 1 million d'acteurs qui s'exercent dedans. Vous avez des inondations récurrentes presque chaque année, d'où le plan Orsec qui nécessite des moyens pour sortir les populations de l'eau. Mais vous avez de fortes variabilités de la pluie pour l'agriculture. Cette année, par exemple, nous avons eu de fortes précipitations et l'année dernière, c'était limite, donc d'où la conséquence d'une faible production agricole. Le Sénégal a initié quand même des solutions. C'est 23 milliards et ces réactions d'adaptation, le hic, c'est que pour l'instant, le plus souvent, nous le faisons sur de l'endettement. Donc ça alourdit notre situation d'endettement. 23 milliards ont été consacrés aujourd'hui, par exemple, pour restaurer les plages de Saly. Parce qu'il fallait sauver le secteur touristique qui est installé dans cette zone balnéaire un peu. Et cela consistait pour créer donc des digues de protection et restaurer ces plages, plusieurs mètres de plage. C'est la mise en place de bourses de sécurité familiale, de bourse familiale. Ça, c'est une politique du président de la République Macky Sall pour permettre donc, aux structures les plus faibles en termes de revenus d'avoir ce minimum, ce filet social-là, qui permettent justement derrière de subvenir au minimum vital.
Yeah. The country is also looking outside for cross-fertilization, benchmarking, good practice. What they have realized is to save 6% of the coastal, the coastal population living in the coastal zone. They need also to secure the tourist activities, which is a provider of important jobs, over 1 million jobs on tourist sector. They have to prepare for floods as climate variability is getting higher. Last year was not a good year in terms of rainfall. This year we had flooding, so it's up and down on food security. But to do all that, they estimated many billions, 23 billions that has been invested. But most of this money has been taken from debt, international debt. They're borrowing money to respond to loss and damage, to respond on the impact of climate change, and to build dikes, and also to distribute stipends from poor household to get access to resources to survive that. The point is they're having to go aside and borrow money to get into international debt to resolve the issues of climate change of communities which are very vulnerable.
Donc c'est tout un programme de filets sociaux. On peut citer le dernier, c'est 43 milliards de cash transfert que le président a eu à faire à destination des familles les plus pauvres du Sénégal, parce que nous sortons quand même d'une crise difficile due à la Covid. Et aujourd'hui, vous avez une autre crise internationale qui est là, qui impacte fortement sur le coût de la vie des populations. Et en cas de désastre au Sénégal, comme les pluies hors saison, vous avez parfois le bétail qui est décimé. Et là, le gouvernement également, avec des filets sociaux, vient en assistance des éleveurs, comme cela a été fait depuis 2019.
In terms of social network and social protections, about 43 billion in cash transfer has been done for household during COVID, which was one of the crises, and now another crisis is happening in the world, and they also bring some sort of social support when we have exceptional rain out of the rainy season that destroy the livestock and the food resources of communities which are very poor.
Et je vais terminer. Quelles sont les attentes aujourd'hui d'un pays comme le nôtre, précurseur du pacte mondial? D'abord, des solutions nous permettant d'agir vite, donc face aux événements extrêmes. Donc la possibilité de disposer de systèmes d'alerte précoce opérationnels pour prévenir les événements d'impact extrême. La mise en place de dispositifs de secours face aux événements catastrophiques. La mise en place, comme vous le dites, de mécanismes de protection sociale dédiés aux populations victimes. Mais l'intégration des risques climatiques dans la planification nationale, cela relève de nous, et le renforcement également de la participation des institutions financières comme la Banque agricole que j'ai citée tout à l'heure, ou le CNAAC, pour trouver des solutions accessibles aux communautés et aux pays. Mise en place, enfin, de mesures durables pour éviter l'exacerbation de la pauvreté, qui sont des résultantes de cet impact climatique. Nous sommes les pays qui émettons le moins. Nous sommes les pays qui sommes front-off, à la ligne, vraiment, qui payons le plus lourd tribut. Aujourd'hui, les mécanismes doivent être des mécanismes justes, équitables, qui tiennent compte du fait qu'aujourd'hui, la situation difficile des pays en voie de développement ne doit pas encore être alourdie en termes de solutions par tout ce qui impose la prise en charge des effets climatiques. Donc voilà un peu.
Yeah.
J'ai été long du fait de la traduction, je m'en excuse. I'm sorry, but I prefer to speak in French. It's better for me to be sure that my words is.
So, in terms of the expectations that the Senegal has for this initiative, is for solution for quick action to respond to extreme events, and also to do an early warning system that help anticipate a few issues. So they need also to get system for emergency action, contingency support. Social protection is key for the communities. Risk assessment is key. Financial support from private, sectors such as bank, agriculture, etc., to access the resources for communities. And the last point was the long-term sustainable solutions that need to be put in place instead of repeating the easy catch. So he finally says, developing countries such as Senegal do not emit, do not create climate change, but they are the one who are suffering the most. So we need a just, and just transition for supporting those countries such as in Senegal. He apologized to be so long because of the translation.
Just one question.
Yeah. In question, he has a question to you.
For you and
He has a question to you and the audience.
tous ceux qui participent à cette COP.
And everybody who is sitting in this room.
Si à l'instant on nous disait que dans 2 mois, une comète va percuter la planète Terre et que la race humaine allait disparaître, que ferions-nous en tant que responsables des différents gouvernements qui constituent cette planète-là?
If the question is, if right now you get the news that an asteroid will hit the Earth in 2 months and we will all die, what will be the reaction of the decision makers across the globe?
Est-ce qu'on allait se donner la main pour mettre en commun toutes nos possibilités pour combattre cela et essayer de dévier cette comète? Ou allons-nous chacun dire non, je vais voir comment protéger mon petit pays et mon petit continent?
If that has to happen, are we going to get our hands together and fight it? Or are we going to be separated and everybody find his own solution?
Les techniciens, les scientifiques nous ont dit que dans le chemin actuel, la race humaine va disparaître. Nous sommes en train de détruire notre planète.
The scientists already said it and repeated that on the pathway we are following, we will all disappear because of climate change.
Merci.
So this is a question.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for the question. We come to that, I think, with the panel, also within the panel, because you rightly have said it's a matter of urgency. It's not only 5 to 12, it's already late. But if I turn to now Peter Duffy, because you've heard of the situation, the severe situation of a country like Senegal, the impact of climate change, the poverty, and all this is compounding and reinforcing. What is USAID doing with that respect?
Thank you very much, Astrid, and thank you for the invitation to be here today and talk about social protection and also about our support for the Global Shield. Of course, our President, Joe Biden, mentioned his support and our support yesterday, so here we're reiterating it. I think we are all very aware of the situation that we are confronting today with just rapidly expanding and worsening humanitarian crisis. We watch the UN appeals come out, and each one seems to be larger and more complex than the other. And resources in the humanitarian space aren't growing as quickly as the need is growing, and so it's forcing a lot of hard trade-offs in the donor community. All of us, I think, come to these situations with our most recent experience in hand. I was most recently in Afghanistan for a few years, a country which has had several years of successively worse drought. And our friends at the World Bank would do quarterly household surveys to see how are people reacting. And as we got deeper into the crisis, the surveys showed that increasingly families were cutting back on meals or eliminating meals altogether. They were increasingly taking their children back out of school, usually they're girls, because they couldn't afford the school. And so what we're facing is not only the individual challenge of an individual person not being able to get ahead, we're looking at a macro level at the unraveling of development gains that we'd worked so hard for. And so coming to this problem and trying to balance the humanitarian need, the legitimate need to address humanitarian requirements with the desire to continue to shore up and advance development goals, investing in social protection sounds like a good investment. And it's an investment where, unfortunately, we have a lot of work to do still to create the tools. Against this backdrop, USAID last year, in the past year, has signed 3 new strategies under the direction of our administration: resilience, food security, and climate. All of them looking to integrate climate into how we do our work, and identifying 3 main efforts in these regards. The first is increasing access to climate information and building the capacity of our partner nations to use that information, use early warning systems to better plan and build resilience. The second is to expand the use of disaster risk finance mechanisms. And the third is to invest more innovatively in adaptive social protection systems. Again, this is an area where we still have a lot to learn, quite openly, but that's why we're here, to learn from everyone's experience. So I'll leave it at that. I will say to the minister's question, that's a great question. It was actually the subject of an Oscar-nominated film last year, and I'll just say I hope that we respond better than the film did, because it was not a good reaction to that scenario.
Thank you very much. Indeed, you're talking also about there's still potential to develop instruments and to drive that further. And we've heard really the call of urgent action here. We'll hear more also from Madagascar. But before we come to Madagascar and the situation in your country, I would like to turn to Hannah Brixey and giving a kind of insight into the instruments you were working with and the instruments you can provide from the side of World Bank, because we need all hands on deck, really working together, really collaborating now. Hannah.
Thank you so much, Astrid. And first of all, congratulations to the German G7 presidency and to the Vulnerable 20 on the Global Shield. The Global Shield really creates an important momentum on crisis and disaster risk finance, including for adaptive social protection. And it can make a significant contribution to closing the protection gap. Now, as we have heard from the honorable speakers, we are living in a time of shocks, and to protect the most vulnerable people and communities to these shocks, social protections play a key role. And in fact, I would say that social protection financing provides a quick win in countries' response to climate shocks. Now, over the past 3 years, the World Bank has financed over $24 billion in social protection, and the proportion that is going to climate-responsive social protection is increasing rapidly. So, Astrid, let me, as you asked me to illustrate some effective programs. So I would highlight the role of cash transfers. Cash transfers for poor and vulnerable households represent a lifeline. They ensure that households have some income and, importantly, have nutrition securities at time of shocks. So one example is in Somalia, the program Baksanano, which was launched 3 years ago, and that provided more than 1 million people with nutrition-linked cash transfers. And the Baksanano program uses shock-responsive features that protected vulnerable communities and households also during the time of the locust outbreak 2 years ago. Now, interestingly, the transfers are paid mostly to women, and this way they also empower women in decision-making, in participating in decisions at the community level as well as in households. In addition to cash transfers, there are also programs that include economic inclusion dimensions. Sometimes they are called cash transfers plus. They provide additional information, additional services to enable households to find out about market opportunities or opportunities how to protect themselves against a disaster that is approaching. I would give you an example in Fiji, where the government, with the support from the World Bank, launched the Jobs for Nature 2.0 project earlier this year. And this project will support especially youth and women with short-term employment opportunities, with skills development opportunities, and this would be in areas, important areas such as agriculture, climate-sensitive agriculture, shall I say, or riverbank rehabilitation. Now, I can give you more examples of important programs, but what I would like to highlight is how important it is to invest in the delivery systems, to have systems such as social registries and digital payments, to have information systems that would be able to identify which households and which communities are most at risk, and to have payment systems to reach these households at the time and ahead of shocks. So that takes me to financing and the importance to have indeed contingent financing. So when the shock hits or it's approaching, that countries are able to expand programs, expand coverage, and reach the poor. Now, I would also like to say that social protection programs and systems play an important role for women's empowerment and for closing gender gap. And what we see from evidence, for example, in disaster risk management, how important it is to include women in decision-making, in the design of these programs, and in the implementation of these programs. And we see that when women participate in such decision-making, these programs are most effective. And finally, just a reflection, last month at the IMF World Bank Group annual meetings in Washington, D.C., we hosted an event on unleashing the power of women for green, resilient, and inclusive development, showcasing the power of women through social protection and through jobs to make climate action more effective. And we were pleased also to hear from Minister Svenja Schulze on Germany's feminist development policy and the fact that feminist policy can be a powerful contributor to climate policy. So congratulations again on the global sheet and on Germany's feminist development policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. And you brought very good points in, like looking for the right delivery systems, looking that the poor and vulnerable are registered, and then adding and blending that with fast liquidity, with cash, with payouts, maybe coming from the risk finance system. And now we come to an interesting, very interesting case, and we are pleased to have General Mami Razakanaivo here from Madagascar. You can tell about your experience of how you blended both systems together. Please. And we have some slides. You've brought some slides with you. We can probably have a look at the slides.
Thank you to give me the floor. And thank you again for the invitation to participate in Madagascar and share the case with social protection in Madagascar. As you know that Madagascar is the vulnerable country in the East Africa when you see in the field. So we have a cyclone, tropical cyclone also. We can take as an example in the case this year. So between January and March, we have 7 tropical cyclones across the Madagascar, and that's we have 2 big tropical cyclones hit Madagascar and destroy in the east, West Madagascar. That is so that the Madagascar is very vulnerable, but the government has the limited financial means, and the second one is in part of Madagascar also is very vulnerable of the drought. So when you can see the case in 2020, 60% of population is suffering from the food security, and last year we have again 45% of the population hit by chronic malnutrition. So as Madagascar, the island. So it's normal in the geographical place of Madagascar. We can see in the map that in the basin of the cyclone, and also cyclone on drought is very the climate hazard very hits Madagascar. The major challenge for the government to better cope within the climate hazard. So how to develop the financial protection mechanism to strengthen the government response capacity. That is the first. The second one is how to reinforce the resilience and the prevents to ensure the best anticipation and preparation. The third point is when you have the cyclone, so we transform it as the opportunity to improve our living condition and also to improve the infrastructure building. The last one is how to, because we have since 20 or 25 the drought problem. So our president decided how to avoid it, to eradicate this. And so we have the new program in the south, that is the multi-sectoral program, but especially with the water. Water not only to drinking and with agriculture, and also with the different use in the south region. After that, so we have some strategy and approach, the social protection activities, in order to help the population, the poor population and the vulnerable population in the south region. So activities, the activities are oriented to the people first, and then the livelihoods, and after the finally with infrastructure rehabilitation. These operations are best to multi-sectoral and multidisciplinary and multi-hazard approach. It's not only the cyclone and the drought and the floods, but together. And also, because we have many NGO and civil society and special organizations, so how to coordinate this activity in social protection in order to have the good result of the action that we conduct in the field. And the second one is, with your respect, we combine now the humanitarian emergency with the resilience activity. So we cannot separate the emergency other. So we combine social protection with resilience. But we must take care, because when we've used the cash transfer, sometimes the population has the dependence. So it's time to give what is something to fish, but not fish every time. Kind of fish, but so they give the means, but not only the fish every day.
Yeah.
How to improve the social protection in Madagascar after this what is that? The climate hazard. So it's better to go to the insurance mechanism, because we know that we have every year cyclone tropical and also the drought. So the government decided to go to the insurance mechanism with African risk capacity, and because the African Development Bank also supported the government to go there. And also, of course, with when you see in the slide, so the government of Germany with KfW and the British and the Switzerland also support with the multi-donors group, Madagascar, with this for the payment of the premium, because as the developing country have the difficulty to pay the premium. So Madagascar since 2019 included with the African risk capacity insurance mechanism. That is the example that we because in 20,000 we received the disbursement from ARC, so with $2 million, because we begin with social protection. Of course, the distribution of food. We can see the number of population beneficiary, and after that we see the nutritional support for the children under 5 years, and also the pregnant women, and what is the name of the breastfeed women also. So they need, and after that we give also the medicament in the rural center of the health and the water supply, and after we begin with the rehabilitation activities. That is the case that we conduct, but this year we received money again with the insurance. We have $10 million from the African Risk Capacity, so we program to use it with distribution of food, with social protection, again with protection ration for the children under 5 years and the breastfeed and pregnant women. And we after that we begin with other activity. That is the case in Madagascar. So with the insurance indemnity that we received, so use first with the social protection, but with all the bank program also we have the cash transfer. So in the different region, because after the hazard, the population is collapsed. So they need at first the cash transfer to buy something, because in the countryside, I think that it's the same in the country regions, African regions, because in the household is nothing, and only something to eat, clothes, and it's enough. When the house is very small and hit by wind, finish. So they need to this money. It is very important for them, because but it's not every time. So we need to fix this period, and after that they can change. When they receive the force, we change with the cash for work or the work for food for work, and after we continue with the other activity, like the other project with what is that? The development activities, in order to give also the work for the population in this region. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. Time is running, and I would like to give one round of questions as a final question for you. Unfortunately, we don't have much more time. I would like to dive deeper into that, because there are so many interesting aspects now. I mean, like the social protection system, for example, you improved food insurance mechanisms, but you also touched upon the affordability issue, like premium support that is very much needed. That brings me to a question again back to State Secretary Vlaasbaard on further support. I mean, beyond the Global Shield, for example, what does Germany already do to support countries in their efforts to expand the adaptive social protection, as we need really from all sides the support? And very short answer so that we can go through the panel.
I'm aware. Is that working? Yeah.
Yeah, it's working.
I'm aware of the time is running. I will be brief. Just two examples. One is Germany is the biggest donor of the World Bank's Sahel Adaptive Social Protection Program. And of course, we are addressing the Sahel region with the respective countries. And in Niger, for example, the program is supporting linking the social adaptive protection programs with climate risk finance. And in 2022, we were already also able to organize cash transfer. I need to look at for 65 people flood exposed people. That is one example, and there was the other one more on the structural architecture level is that we are planning to send or pay an expert at the World Bank to allow the World Bank to better link the social protection work of the bank together with climate risk finance. I know Hannah is aware of that and could, if time was available, explore more. Unfortunately, this is the moment I have to leave because I have an appointment that I cannot miss. Thanks for the moderation. Thanks for all my colleagues and friends here around the table.
Thank you, State Secretary. But let me turn to His Excellency Minister Ndoye. A question to you is, what would you expect? You will be one of the pathfinder countries for the Global Shield. What would you expect from the Global Shield for your country?
Global Shield, c'est le... Merci. Ce que nous attendons, c'est... Nous remercions déjà le gouvernement allemand pour tout ce qu'il fait. Mais c'est d'aider sur toutes ces questions aujourd'hui qui touchent au changement climatique, d'aller vers la mise en œuvre de tout ce que nous sommes en train de dire. Si je circonscris aujourd'hui ce que je veux dire dans le thème actuel, le Sénégal a fait des efforts en créant d'abord un registre national unique de l'ensemble des familles pauvres qui subissent l'impact des changements climatiques, en mettant en place ce qu'on a appelé une bourse de sécurité familiale pour justement créer ces filets sociaux pour permettre à ces populations, en tout cas, de s'en sortir, en mettant en place la couverture médicale universelle pour l'accès universel des populations à la santé, dernièrement avec la Banque mondiale en faisant du cash transfert qui est allé directement aux familles identifiées, clairement identifiées dans le registre national unique, étant les plus pauvres du Sénégal. Tout ceci demande effectivement de l'argent, de la finance. Donc aujourd'hui, c'est qu'on se mette d'accord sur ce qu'est d'abord la finance climatique, parce que pour pouvoir avoir plus de transparence et la suivre demain, il faut une définition communément acceptée, et que cette finance, justement, sa traçabilité permette qu'elle aille aux populations les plus concernées, donc les plus vulnérables. Je vais peut-être me limiter à ça.
Thank you to the government of Germany for this important initiative. Senegal has put in place a national repository, a national database for poor people who needs to get support, and that repository is used to distribute food security stipend through different mechanisms. Cash transfer is one of them. They have put in place universal health cover for those people who cannot just pay by their own pocket the insurance cost of it. And all those initiatives, they need money. But we need to really have a common definition of what is climate finance and how we use that definition to track the investment on climate change at the global level, national level. And that's the expectation that we want to put there for the sake of time.
Thank you. I turn to Hannah Brixi. How can the link, what is climate finance? What are instruments? And how can the link between social protection and climate and disaster risk finance be fostered through the Global Shield beyond, particularly at country level? And what instruments and levers are available at the World Bank now?
Thank you, Astrid. So very briefly, first let me say that social protection needs to be an integrated set of programs. As we have heard very nicely the illustration, cash transfers play an important role when it comes to protecting households, but complementary programs can help households to rebuild their livelihoods. They can help households and communities to expand economic activities and do it in a way that would be climate sensitive, or one would even say climate transformative. So having a good design of an integrated set of programs is really a key. My second point is on the importance of stress testing for governments, for countries to assess how resilient their social protection programs and systems are. So at the time of a shock, how capable the system is in, for example, identifying the households that are most at risk, having a mechanism to transfer resources and information to these households, having mechanisms to monitor how these households are doing and how well resources are utilized. So having a stress test is key, and I'm delighted that we have partnership also with Germany in developing and helping countries to apply this stress test. And finally, on your question, Astrid, on how the Global Shield really supports the resilience of social protection systems and programs at the country level. And I would highlight 3 points. One is it really helps to facilitate coordination at the country level and also at the global level. So it's a mechanism to help coordinate across ministries, across levels of government, and also with development partners in countries to have a, as I said, well-designed and integrated set of social protection programs. Second, it helps with systems building, and having the stress testing and the strengthening of the resilience dimensions of the systems is a key element. And finally, the financing, having the contingency element in financing social protection, so that when there is a need to expand coverage or to expand benefits, the countries have easy access to financing to do so.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we heard from the Honorable Minister, you need sustainable solutions. I turn to Peter. Last question and quick, what are your priorities to help to drive these sustainable solutions forward?
Thank you very much, Astrid. So I'll talk about two different areas. The first, of course, is early warning systems, and we have a partnership with our space agency, NASA, to make available data to all the partner nations that wish to use it in understanding how to better prepare and plan for disasters. We have a partnership program, for example, in Kenya, where we work with the Ministry of Agriculture to use that data to better target insurance programs and bringing risk insurance from 1,000 people 5 years ago to more than 1 million people today. So that's an exciting opportunity. I actually suggest folks go to the U.S. Center. They have every couple hours they do a demonstration of the satellites and how they're moving around and what data they're gathering. It's pretty cool. I did hear on a different panel this morning, actually, that for every 14 data scientists in North America, there's only one in sub-Saharan Africa. So there's still a lot of work to be done in building the sustainable capacity also. Finally, after hearing the great success story from Madagascar, we've also invested with the World Food Program and the governments of Burkina Faso and Mali in insurance and risk insurance. We'll be prioritizing looking at more disaster risk financing mechanisms such as insurance in the coming years.
Thank you, Peter. And the last 3 success factors, just very fast and quick, you would recommend. What is your recipe, the success factors to bring that together, social protection and disaster risk?
Yes, thank you so much, Fancho, again. That is the success solution that for during this, when you use this insurance indemnity, that the first one is that we can use one data with in the south region, so that we create the data for the food security and combined with malnutrition. So that is the Kere data, that is the Kere malnutrition in Malagasy. So that is the first with the Ministry of Telecommunication and Numeric Development. That is the first one. The second one is that what we can improve the integration gender approach during this activity of social protection, because we give the opportunity to improve the women leadership and also to give the opportunity to take part during this activity that we conduct because we are also distribute the warm food in the school, and also with this vulnerable population. So the women work more with us. The other points that we would like to add that now, after the first disbursement, so we will open the collaboration with the ARC replica. That is the double. That is the insurance with my colleague here, old program food. So we have two insurance mechanisms together when you draw it, two in Seglon or two with old bank, old food collaboration. The second one is after the first activity that with the Adrisi program, we have also the additional financing from the partners. So we'd like to invent again to improve your engagement, your challenge to support Madagascar for the next 2 years. So we have already received this fund. We wait the signature of this collaboration. So we will continue, and also with coordination the activities in order to have more impact in the beneficiary, this activity that we conduct. Of course, that is not only for the social protection, but we begin every activity with social protection, and after until the rehabilitation, and of course with the activity for the development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So give you a big hand to the panelists. Thank you very much. We could discuss further. We have taken more time than expected, but that shows that there's still a lot of potential, and but also many activities are on the way. And I think it calls for a strong continuation on integrating the social protection system into the overall risk management. Thank you very much. Thank you for your endurance, and thank you very much, distinguished panelists.
Thank you, Astrid.
All right, good job. That's a great story.
Congratulations.